In this video, I'm going to share one of my favorite font libraries to use for print on demand. I'll show you how the website works, how you can utilize it to find appropriate fonts for your designs, and I'll also, at the end of the video, give you 12 font suggestions. So let's dive right in. So here we are on the website in question. It's Adobe Fonts. I will leave a link to this in the description, and you get access to this library of fonts if you have a Creative Cloud subscription. That means these are not free, unfortunately. However, if you are looking for free fonts instead, I have multiple videos on my channel showing you some of my favorite free fonts that you can use commercially as well. If you're new to Adobe, then you might not be aware that all of these fonts are included in your plan and you can use them commercially. So first of all, how do you navigate this page? On the left-hand side, we've got a lot of different filters. So we've got the tags right here for the different styles that you can filter through. Some good categories to check are brush pen, rough, fun is a nice category, horror, shaded. Further down, we've got classification. So if you're looking for sans serif, normal serif, a script font, you can filter through that. The weight is also quite useful. I often use that if I'm looking for a bolder font, then I just click on this thick weight over here, and you could even filter by width. So a very condensed font would be this filter over here. Contrast, sometimes useful. These other settings I've not really used before. So anyway, you've got a lot of really nice filters. I probably like the rough category the most. Once we've got this open, there's a few more things you can change. The view over here is grid by default. You could also change it to list instead. So you've got one font in each line, or you can also disable the images, and that way you just see the plain font and none of the sort of marketing images. I like to keep them on. They are good examples. You can increase the text size right here. You can also put some sample text if you wanted to. And a few examples of rough fonts right here that are really nice are Nexa Rust. They've got 6 fonts included in this library. We've got Veneer as well. That is a very popular one for t-shirt design. Juna actually likes this font a lot. I think he uses it in his thumbnails as well on YouTube. Kiln, this is one I've started using recently. So you've definitely got a ton of really nice looking fonts right here. We've got 8 pages of rough fonts actually. If you want to add any of these to your library of fonts, you don't have to do some fiddly work with downloading, installing, that sort of stuff. All you have to do in the Adobe Fonts library is literally just click Add Family right here. So if you click this button, it's going to say font available in your Adobe apps. It literally just takes a few seconds, and then you can choose it within Adobe Illustrator, Photoshop, whichever app you're signed into. And if you want to remove it from your list of fonts, it's the same button right here, click remove, and it will deinstall automatically. This syncs across all of your devices as well. So if you're logged in on a laptop, it will install it there as well. I'm pretty sure that's how it works. So extremely handy, a lot easier than some of the other ways to get fonts out there. And another thing I want to show you is if you open up a font that you really like, you like the style of it, the aesthetic feel, then you can also click on the creator up here. So it's designed by Ryan Martinson and it's from Yellow Design Studio. This is a very popular font creation or font studio, I don't know what to call it. But if you click on this, you will see all of the different fonts that are listed within the Adobe Fonts library. Lullabies, that one looks really nice as well. I actually don't have that in my library, maybe worth checking out, so I'm going to add that. But as you can see, I have got a lot of their fonts installed already, and they're definitely one of my favorites. You can do the same thing. If you find a good looking font, check out the studio as well. They'll probably have more fonts that you like the look of. So now I'm going to quickly show you 12 different fonts that I like from this library for t-shirt design. Some of these I've used a lot in the past, others I've just recently installed, and I'm going to test them for future projects. So this first font is sort of a go-to for almost every design, every niche. It's Nexa Rust Sans. Really nice aesthetic, easy to read, bold, and the texture effect looks amazing. There's also a few different versions to it. So we've got black, which is without a texture, and Black Shadow 2. This one looks neat, but it is a bit harder to read, so I would use it sparingly. However, one quick idea would be to use these as like contrasting fonts because they are in the same family. Yeah, that does look quite interesting. So that's one idea, but overall, I think Black 2 is my favorite style. Then we've got Anodyne Combined. This one is a bit more distressed, a bit harder to read, but an interesting effect with this sort of striped shadow. It's a condensed font, which I always really like, and you can also have different options for the texture. So if you write lowercase letters, then you will actually get less texture. If I spell the same underneath, this is uppercase, and here we've got lowercase. As you can see, the texture pattern is definitely different, and the top is a bit easier to read in my opinion. Next up, we've got Lullabies. That's the font that I was surprised about that I don't have it installed yet. I did install this recently, and it does look really nice. It's an amazing script font, and it has a lot of different styles as well. So I've got the regular selected right here, but we've got text fill, so with the holes filled in, which is super interesting. We've got regular fill, which is the script font filled in, heavy, and these are just thicker versions. Oh, extras, I hadn't noticed that one yet. So you even got these sort of extra icons that you can use within your design. Always really handy to have the extras sort of suiting the style of the font. That way you've got a way easier time creating nice looking designs. I do have a separate tutorial actually about decorative t-shirt designs, showing you how to use these sort of extras to fill in the gaps and make a coherent t-shirt design that looks very interesting. So check that out. Lullabies is a good font for that purpose. Moving on, we've got a serif font right here, Pulpo Rust, with 3 different styles. I really only like the 75 option because the other ones are quite rusty or distressed and definitely a lot harder to read in my opinion. So stick to the 75 one, I would say, for t-shirts. But overall, very nice style, very sharp edges right here, easy to read still, and it works both uppercase and lowercase too. Then we've got another font with many different versions that you can use really well for those decorative t-shirt designs. I've used Good Life a lot in the past and have also gotten a lot of sales with it. So we've got, first of all, at the top, the serif bold version, then sans serif right here. That's a slimmer one. We've got the fishing is brush. That was probably the font I've used the most in combination with the top option right here. And then at the bottom, we've also got a script version of the font. And if I drag this out to the side, you also get, where are they, extras. Here we go. I really like this arrow, for example. So essentially, whatever letter you type in on your keyboard, you're going to get a different sort of preset extra thing. There's some decorative elements and many other features, which is really, really cool. Love fonts like this, and they're really fun to design with. Next up, a bit of a different style. This is more of a fun font. If you have a funny design, maybe something for kids as well, then this style could work super well. You can see the letters sort of extending. They're sort of, you know, distorted, wonky. It's definitely more kids-centric. This one is called Nov, or Nov, not sure how to pronounce it, and it only has one actual version. I started using this recently. Big fan of this font. It definitely looks very fun, and yeah, it's not much more to it. It's bold, it's easy to read, considering it is quite distorted, and it's definitely one worth trying out if you do have access to the Adobe Fonts library. Next up, Canvas Inline. This one only has a regular and a heavy version, and the heavy version has that nice sort of inline effect right here with the black middle. It even looks nice if you zoom out. Still easy to read and has a nice effect around the edges as well. It's sort of a bit distressed. So yeah, very nice font, nice texture effect, and usable for many different niches. Then we've got Saint Elia Rough. This one has a few different options. You've got a very thin version, extra light, and all the way up to black too. So this is really handy to play around with the different weights, and I would say use this one sparingly. You don't want to have an entire design with a long phrase just with this font, because it is a bit harder to read, or it's on that side of being harder to read, but the overall look of this is really, really nice. I like the texture effect, and this definitely works across many different niches for both male and female designs. And then we've got Veneer. I mentioned it earlier, and this is one of my favorite fonts as well. It has 3 different levels of texture. So the regular one is very subtle. 3 is the hardest, the strongest texture version, and number 2 is probably a safe option if you want to make sure that it's still readable, but it still has a nice looking texture effect. This font, super easy to read. It's condensed, so you can use it for big words as well and still have them appear in a decent size on your t-shirt. And it is one of those fonts that just, you know, suits almost every situation, almost every scenario, and works across many different niches. This font, on the contrary, does not work in many different niches, or not across all different niches like Veneer does. Abril Fat Face is definitely a bit of a different style right here, and you've got an italic and a regular version. I thought there was some thinner ones as well, but I guess I was wrong. But anyway, this one has more of a luxury feel, might be more of a feminine look as well, and can definitely work well for some topics, but it's not going to be, you know, across the board working for every single niche. So you have to use it in a specific scenario where it actually makes sense. But overall, the look of this font is definitely amazing. And here we've got Gilly. Elisa, and I'm probably pronouncing most of these names wrong, but anyway, this is another serif font, which often works very nicely in contrast with a sans serif font. At least from my experience, that's worked well in my t-shirts. And this one is nice because it's very easy to read. Sometimes the serif fonts are a bit on the harder side for legibility, and you've also got a lot of different weights, the italic options to play with. Depending on what sort of design you're creating, you might need like a thicker version or a thinner version. It always depends as well how big or how long your sentence is. Sometimes a bolder version might be more applicable. But yeah, this font, very nice, very simple, doesn't have a texture effect, but you don't always want a texture effect in your design necessarily, so I did want to show you this option as well. And lastly, here we've got a very distressed font with an interesting style. It's called Battery Pack. It's only got the one regular version, and does it have, yeah, it does have those different texture effects depending on if you use capital letters or not. As you can see, they do change. Right here, the E's are different as well. So it definitely looks very realistic. It's a bit harder to read if we zoom out, but overall an interesting style that could work in certain scenarios, like maybe political niches, or I could see this working for something like gaming, maybe mechanics. You know, it's specific topics with this sort of font would be quite applicable and stand out in the search results. And a quick bonus font, another very simple one, but definitely useful. It's called Noka. It has a bold version. It has, you know, a very thin version, lots of different weights, and this one is just very, very sharp edges, so maybe a bit more masculine, but it can work in many different scenarios. Could also see this working in combination with a script font. Once again, if you have a very, very basic, very geometric font, you mix it with something else that has quite a contrasting style, that often looks good and sort of visually pleasing. So check out Noka if you like these sort of simple sans serif fonts. If you want to learn about some of the best free font libraries out there that you can use for commercial purposes, make sure to check out this video next, where I share my 7 favorites.